Yeah, good afternoon, comrades. No, I was saying another way of approaching it, I believe, is that we should involve our Minister of Defense, because we are military veterans. She is our minister. And also, Section 3 of the Act does allude. Hello?
Unmute.
Yeah. Sorry, one second. I see Moss is trying to. It looks like it looks like he's fine now, but you're gonna complete before he actually goes ahead.
That's the presentation that we call.
Yeah. Moss, we can hear you. Do you wanna mute quickly? We can hear you.
Am I audible, comrades?
Yes, Commissar.
Yeah, you are audible and quite Buccaneer in style. You look like exactly like your chair. We can see eyes, but that's good. Do you want to adjust your camera a bit so that at least we don't see, we can actually just see you?
Just hold on. Comrade Russell. Just camera.
Yeah, because now
And they see you.
Yeah, I'm born.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you look exactly like an African dictator. We leave it there for now. Let's
African dictator.
Yeah, let's just allow Commissioner Saleh to complete it, then you're gonna take over then. Yeah. Sorry, Commissioner Saleh, do you wanna complete, please?
Yeah, I was just saying we can use Section 3 of the Military Veterans Act, no Section 5, I think 5F, 5 bracket 3 of the Military Veterans Act. That will empower a minister to help us in approaching the BMA on behalf of military veterans.
Yes.
So that we don't do this thing without any support on our own, because really she is our minister. So this thing needs political decisions, and as our political executive, the Act empowers her to can approach the PMA. Thank you very much. Thank you, Commissar.
No, thank you. Thanks, Commissioner Saleh. Okay, we will park that. We're just looking at it because we're waiting for Commissioner Moss. Now, welcome once again, and apologies that we're actually starting late this evening. And the main host today is Comrade Clarence Quinana, Patrick Makaya, so he will actually just take over. I was just keeping the fort, and Moss, we all know him. There is no need to actually introduce him. Kulua, the guest is yours.
Am I unmuted? Perhaps. Okay.
No, we can hear you very well. I'm gonna mute.
All right. Welcome, comrades, those who have joined already. This evening, we are having Comrade Moss as the presenter in terms of, well, a very important subject, as we know. We've been battling with the subject, for donkey years, for as long as democracy arrived. Now, I said, okay, this evening, we will do it rather slightly differently. After his presentation, rather than say questions first and comments later, we will try and integrate everything. Once a person comes in, he or she must be free to make an input or a comment on the issues and further pose a question. We will note all of those. That would assist, that will help any person who comes in as a contributor to be able to do a question and a contributions simultaneously. Just in case you are not able to come back again, at least we have done everything so it will speed up progress. Also, it will assist also the presenter to be able to tap on some of the inputs in order to tackle some of the questions. We will see how many people will be there by the time he presents. We could say, if we are too many, we could say maybe let's take 5 people as a first round. If we are fewer, we could say, okay, let's take maybe 2 people or 3. We will see how it goes by the time he is finished. So Comrade Moss is already 25 to 7. In order that we don't waste any more time, let's hand over to you so that then you begin to unpack what we have on the menu.
Thanks, Comrade Makaya. Thanks, Comrade Malik, as co-chair. I'll try and gallop because we've lost time, and I sincerely apologize. I'm yet to graduate into the 4th Industrial Revolution. Malik, do I understand it that you'll scroll the slides as I move? No?
Yes, if you give me a prompt or instruction.
I'll prompt you. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Comrades, it's important that I make 2 foregrounding statements. The first one is that those who might have been joining us late, or Comrade Sali or Bani, but who are familiar with the history and evolution of MK, should note that we started this process in terms of trying to discuss critical policy questions as former MK commissars almost 7 weeks ago. The focus in the first phase was more around policies relating to the ANC. In light of our understanding that we're also having the 60th anniversary and the all-inclusive, envisaged all-inclusive MK conference, we then changed tack after 6 topics, and started focusing on MK-specific policy questions, one of which, the last one, I'm advised that Sally was there. I couldn't join, unfortunately, because of technology. We started zooming on a broader contextual topic of national security interests in relation to the need for national security strategy, which Comrade Lulu 60 presented on. We had a review, as we normally do on Sunday, and it became clear that the paper was able to lay a strong foundation, but it needed to be enhanced on certain areas. So I'm continuing from that journey. And my topic for today mainly was to look at the interventions we seek to deal with social, economic, security, as well as political challenges facing MK within the advent of democracy in 1994, primarily. With particular focus around the recent period, which I can characterize as the period of the presidential task team era. And in the paper, I do trace the genesis of this presidential task team. I felt I should put the topic as the PTT as it relates to our perspective and a critical look at what it has done, what it has succeeded on, failed on, and what perhaps need to be enhanced. Next slide. The question we're posing there, just go back, Malik. Go back to the previous slide. The key operational question that we're asking is, given that is the highest and the most recent intervention of government in relation to trying to resolve the issues of MK, we're asking a question: can it work given the challenges it faces? And we look at a critical perspective in that regard. Next slide. The table of contents on my presentation outline has got 10 topics or thematic areas. I make a short abstract of what the whole paper speaks to, and then go into why the presentation, the objectives we seek to achieve, critical assumptions, contextual background, and the genesis of this structure, constitutional and legislative mandate that impacts on whether we succeed or not, the mandate of the PTT. By PTT, I will be meaning Presidential Task Team, used as an acronym, and then the consensus document, which was a product of this process, and the related work stream, which is governance instruments to make it work. Look at the pros and cons thereof. And then we look at the journey map thus far, achievement made and failures. Go upwards a bit, Malik. And then we then move towards recommendations and concluding notes. I felt it's important to locate the macro context in which the PTT should be understood in terms of the obligation of the country as found in the basic document, or let me say the most fundamental law of the country, the Constitution. And the Constitution is very clear on where it situates the issue of military veterans within the socio-economic and political spectrum of our society. I will not read it as it is. Suffice to say that the key operational words in that preamble are the following. One, recognition of injustices, that military veterans were a product of an unjust society and they sought to bring justice during the past, prior to 94. Secondly, the issue of need for honoring them for having fought for justice and freedom. Then the third operational word that's critical, show respect for what they've done in sacrifice for their country. And then the Constitution is adopted with a clearly defined purpose of improving the quality of life of all citizens and free their potential of each person, which means key is that quality of life of military veterans is fundamental insofar as the constitutional principles are concerned. Two, recognition of the fact that they've got a potential to make immeasurable contributions given their experience in society. And of course, this preamble injuncts or enjoins society, the state and non-state actors, to try and realize this vision, if indeed we have to be a constitutional democracy worth its meaning. Next slide. Oh, take it up, Malik. Take this slide up. Notwithstanding the constitutional injunction or enjoyment, what is clear from 94 to date is that we have not been able to reach that objective as a country and a state, let alone as societal structures. So there's a challenge there, a constitutional challenge, not just a legislative challenge. The second bullet seeks to say that the unfortunate language or nomenclature that further accentuate this problem is the fact that those who fought for freedom are characterized in a negative manner, non-statutory forces. And by extension, those who fought against freedom are statutory. Now, the question that arises, we may have to ponder and look at as we try to navigate a new journey path to finding solutions. Who really is statutory in the context of democracy? Is it those who fought for freedom or those who didn't fight for freedom, fought against freedom? And that is why there's a lot of anger emanating in military veterans that they made a negative group of people in the context of democracy. Whilst those who fought against justice have got a statutory status far beyond them. Whether in practice is another story, but the very nomenclature, the very posture of our legislative imperative drives a very unfortunate message which borders towards an affront to those who fought for freedom. The abstract also recognizes the fact that it has generated a response to begin to give proper legitimacy of legislative languages, because what we're talking about here is found in many a document of government, including the Department of Military Veterans, which refers to those who fought for freedom as non-statutory forces, let alone other departments that seek to actually address the needs of this community, also use the same language. So something government-wise ought to be looked at and revised as we seek to really posture military veterans who fought for freedom in a particular way in society. Therefore, the terms that have emerged, which are used interchangeably, though they might not mean the same, are concepts like liberation war veterans, moving away, liberation struggle war veterans, moving away from NSF, or liberation war veterans, whatever choice, but it seeks to say they can't be addressed negatively when they're positive catalyst for democracy and freedom. Right. And then the abstract recognizes the fact that, notwithstanding the challenges, there's been many attempts since 1994, either at national, provincial, or local government levels, at times even among civil society structures, state-owned enterprises, etc., to try and make a dent in changing the lives of military veterans. However, the vexing problem or challenge is they've not made the desired impact to make military veterans feel that their dignity is restored and they take their rightful place in society. So there's a challenge there. The efficacy of the interventions that were made and how they translate into actual life of military veterans community. And therefore, in that context, the latest intervention through the Presidential Task Team, which is the first of its kind throughout the last 27 years of democracy, seeks to address in a holistic and integrated way the challenges that have made us fail for some time, this community. Let's go up, Malik. And the abstract seeks to say that there's a need for radical change in the policy trajectory that we have taken to try and redress that situation. Next slide. So that's what the abstract seeks to summarize. Suffice to say that it does say that the paper recognizes the fact that due to these failures, they've manifested themselves in fragile institutions that are established to intervene, being not able to reach what is expected of them. And therefore, the recent unfortunate events in St. George's, where ministers were held hostage or kidnapped, whatever you call it, but the unfortunate happening at St. George's recently is but a manifestation of the growing anger with how government has dealt with this matter for the last 20 years. And therefore, there's a high expectation that the PTT ought to make a dent that is going to be sustainable. Next slide. Next slide, Malik.
Okay.
Malik, can you go to the next slide? The aim, basically in the aim is to brief the team of the genesis of the PTT, the progress and challenges faced, and to propose the solutions that can be immediate, medium to long term in the resolution of the challenges that face military veterans community. Next slide. Then we set out about 5 objectives that ought to underpin our approach towards resolution of this problem. I will call upon these ones. 1, to develop a common understanding on the PTT, enhance a common and shared vision among stakeholders, raise robust and honest reflections, to assist in defining focused roles and responsibilities of ExMK cadres in the PTT. I am raising this one with emphasis that you will know that the PTT is a concoction in terms of the constituency that it's dealing with. You have those from the APLA, from Azanla, and quite interestingly, which I want to flag for reflection, even the former TBVC states were given a platform to address liberation war veterans matters. Even former SADF in the form of CMVO, the real oppressor, was part of the PTT. Surely there's something to talk about here and reflect the appropriateness and efficacy of that approach. But it was the reality that faced this process. And we do this because we're cognizant of the fact that there's many platforms in the ANC and MK that are going to give us a space to interrogate this PTT and be able to make a forward. These include the Unity Conference, the NGC of the ANC, and the Elective Conference. Next slide. The paper makes certain critical assumptions. The one, it recognizes the positive role and force that military veterans are who can contribute in a diverse of ways to help enhance our macro goals of reconciliation, social cohesion, and nation building. Secondly, it recognizes that they constitute a critical potent force towards a deep-going social transformation, which the country seeks to actually achieve, as well enhance a comprehensive national security interest architecture, as well as development of an implementable strategy on national security. That was canvassed very strongly last week by 60. Next slide. In the genesis of, I think this is more backgrounding the paper and the evolution of PTT. Key dates to know is that there was a march on the 10th of November to the Union Building. Secondly, it was mainly composed of non-statutory forces, so-called, who then called themselves Liberation Struggle War Veterans, which had nothing to do with former
Most.
Comrade Malik, can you intervene there? Something is wrong with Comrade.
Yeah, he's frozen. Moss, can you hear us? Moss. Okay, I do think that we will give him time to reconnect, and we can probably comment. Comrade Patrick will actually guide us, as to whether we start reflecting on the parts that he has touched on, because he is actually having problems again.
I was actually about to call him on a private line just to figure out whether the connection on his side is restorable, and if not, then we revert to the other plan that he had suggested earlier.
Okay.
Perhaps what we could do, we could try and reflect on what he has said so far, whilst I'm busy calling him to see if he's able to reconnect.
No, that's fine. And then also I can also just add some bits, in what he has actually presented, because it's a process that I'm quite familiar with as well.
Yeah, just do so in the meantime whilst I'm trying to see what's happening. Yeah.
No, that's fine. So we'll just put on my camera just to give you a sense. Okay, so the issue of the PTT, as most actually indicated, was instituted after, or rather was actually announced after the march. But the reality is that it was actually like a work in progress. It's a process that actually started in 2019, November, October, where the, if you like, I mean, I don't like factions, but effectively, if you like, the National Council in Gauteng effectively instituted a team that went to see the president of the ANC in his capacity as the ANC president in Lutuli. Comrade Ray Cindy was actually leading that. I couldn't join them, but there were about 5-6 comrades who actually went to see the president and to raise a variety of issues, in terms of the challenges that are actually facing military veterans. Now, the president then agreed to actually have a discussion with both the deputy minister at the time, who is still the deputy minister there, and the former minister who actually left. And when the march took place, the president actually thought it was us who he was talking to, until that had to be clarified, that no, there is a similarity of names. It is not Liberation War Veteran Support and Advocacy, but it is effectively a different structure. And then that process was extended to include all the other former armies, and that is purely because by law, the department, as it is now, of military veterans said they could not differentiate among military veterans. So, and you would understand, General Ngwebi was actually involved at that stage as the HOD of the DMV, and him coming from TDF as well, it would have put him in a very awkward situation. So, in a way, just to plug in some of the holes there as to how your TBVC forces and CMVO were actually included, and that's effectively that. So there is a misconception that PTT is about LSWV. It is much more than LSWV in that sense. As a structure, we decided not to participate in that because we didn't believe it was going to go far enough in addressing those issues. So we did write to the presidency to say we are pulling out of that process. And fortunately, both MKMVA and MKNC were also involved in the PTT discussion. So we were not losing anything being part of those two associations, so to speak. Yeah. So maybe then, while we are waiting for Moss, we can probably engage around the issues that he has actually raised, around the Act, the PTT, and all of that. Most fundamentally, is the reality that there is an Act of Parliament, Military Veterans Act of 2011, I think it is, that needs some work. And maybe we can reflect on things like those. Anyone can jump in. Comment or question?
Yeah, thanks, Chair, Comrade Kunana and Linda. My name is Mujaki, Commissar MKM, President-elect. May I indicate that we have a very serious problem, especially within the issue of legislation of the formation of the DMV and the subsequent SAMVA and other subsidiaries therein. You'll remember that our democracy was achieved through a negotiated settlement. and we had to make a lot of compromises. That is why ultimately we saw us being classified as non-statutory, and those that were fighting against us, that were the impediment to the very revolution we wanted to achieve, were regarded as statutory, with better benefits than we do have. Having said that, we also contributed as former liberation struggle veterans. I don't want to talk about war because I don't think we're ever in any war. But as liberation struggle veterans, we also contributed in fragmenting our own voice, in trying to be superior to other units as if they were not contributing or they don't contribute as much as we did. Here I'm referring to MK trying to take over and control, because they were the majority, control APLA, Azanla, and whatever other forces that one may think of. That in itself became an impediment within Zambia itself. Secondly, was that MK cadres that were elected to run the MKVA. So this is a political cushion, a political springboard that could push them into the corridors of power. That contributed effectively in the plight that we find ourselves in. And unfortunately, it is there within the legislative power that we have this kind of problem. I further want to say that I'm worried that the team that went to meet the president also contributed as a third leg in the whole process. Remember, by then we had the so-called MKVA, then we had the MKNC, and then when they realized, when some individuals, not former liberation struggle veterans, when individuals realized that their sentiments were not carried forth, then they came up with the so-called liberation struggle war veterans voice that talks for who? Because we on the ground never had any say in all those other structures. And yet we were used, our names have been used through and through to pursue certain objectives that necessarily did not favor us. Because the economic problem, the social problems, the academic problems, the entrepreneurial problems that we as former liberation war veterans, veterans, did not enjoy, and they are still not enjoying. And we are dying day in and day out without actually accessing those things that we're supposed to be accessing. The main reason is that we are not united. We don't have one voice. And that makes it possible for those in the authority to ignore us, because they know that you will come as MKVA, you will come as MKNCA, you will come as LC and LSWV, and then they can be able to shift the blame from time to time. We need to do something about that. That is my main concern thus far, based on what was presented to us now. And just before I mute, the issue of the PTT, the structural formation of PTT itself shows that we are not even taken seriously now, because there is no mechanism that has been set in place on how do these people communicate back to us. What is it that they are talking about us without us? So there's no way that they're communicating with us. Hence, it creates a lampoon for anarchy and people dealing with things their own way for their own personal gains, rather than to make sure that we access what we're supposed to access. I will pause it here.
Okay. No, thank you very much for that. I seem to think.
What we'll do, Comrade Malik, unless you've got a comment, I just wanted to say that Comrade Mujak so far will move in the following sequence. It will be Comrade Sadi hereafter, followed by Comrade Castro, so far in terms of the hands. Unless there's a summation that you wanted to do, that's how we're going to proceed. Okay, over to you. Okay.
No, that is perfect. I didn't realize you were back on with Moss.
I'm still trying to find Moss also. I'm not sure what's happening on the other side. Continue for now.
Okay. No, that is perfect. I think I was going to raise Comrade Sadi's hand as well, and then of course Castro, just to reflect on that, what you have covered so far. Comrade Sally.
Thank you, Thank you very much, Chairperson Commissar. Yeah, I think firstly, I'd like to express sincerely gratitude to Commissar Moss, Comrade Makaya, the approach that comrades you have taken in us discussing the act. I think it's so practical, and it actually drives particular points home about the situation we're finding ourselves. So thank you for that. And also the points that Comrade Preston was has raised. I agree, those are the things that I wanted to raise, but I'm not going to repeat them other than to add, to say or emphasize firstly that indeed our leadership never had any seriousness of tackling our issues since we came back home. That is why we find ourselves in this situation. We are convenient at times, to be taken seriously, and also we become an inconvenience at particular times. But the fact that also some amongst us have seen being in MK as a vehicle towards power corridors have not assisted us at all. My worry right now is that, as I said in our last webinar, I am emphasizing the fact that time is against us. The municipal elections have shown us we are not sure as we stand here if we will be in power come 2024, which means this 24 months leaves us with a serious program of action that we need to embark on to ensure that whatever that we are identifying as things that are holding us back, we're dealing with those decisively without much rhetoric. Now, I just want to quickly mention that the issue of our leaders, for instance, continuing addressing that Liberation Struggle War Veterans meeting, also including people who are from the so-called statutory forces, actually also hiding behind the fact that, but the legislation is saying you are all military veterans, is where we need to start. I repeat what I said last week. We really need to attack this legislation of military veterans and introduce changes that we want to see with speed and make sure that actually this happens. Because if we do not do that, they will continue hiding. And in actual fact, I'm using the word hide, but we are a constitutional democracy. This country is run through laws. So we are going to fail as long as the law that is supposed to support whatever that we're trying to do is not in favor of what we believe should be what we stand for. So I'm pushing for, I just believe that after this whole talk that we're making here, there will be a program of action with decisive actions that need to be taken and definite timelines so that come 2024, we're really sure of where we stand. Thank you very much.
I'm not sure where you are, Comrade Malik.
Yeah, no, thanks. Castro is next.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
After Castro, it will be 60. 60 is on the line also, yeah.
Yeah.
Can you please pass me over? I'm still trying to link with Umos. Umos has just called me.
Okay.
So if you can pass me over, then we...
Yeah, we'll come back to you. Maybe.
Okay, sure.
6-0. Yeah, 6-0, you can go ahead.
Yeah.
Good evening, comrades.
Evening.
Thanks for the opportunity. I fully agree with the sentiments shared by Commissar Sadi and Commissar Preston. But I would like also to come with another angle. As we are approaching, I'm not sure where the process is. Unfortunately, comrades, I joined late. I'm not sure where the process of the Unity Conference is. Because I think we need to use this platform to make sure that we are treated equally with everybody in the ANC. with everybody in government, as we are governed by an act as military veterans. You see, as I look at the situation unfolding, the PTT and so forth, this process has turned us into a charity case, because for the mere fact that we will always wait for the deputy president to call a meeting and address us and be told as to what are the decisions and resolutions. I think it's high time that we use this conference, comrades, to make sure that whatever resolutions and recommendations that we are going to take there, they need to go into and act those that are policies that are going to govern and guide us as liberation of veterans. We really need to make sure that they place us at the center of government. They place us at the center of the NEC, of the ANC. Because this thing of every time we need to send delegations as if we were born in a back room. So every time we want to make something, you need to ask for the landlord to say that, here am I, at your mercy. I'm asking that, I'm asking to do 1, 2, 3, 4. So this time around, I think we really need to, whatever things that we're going to discuss in that unity conference, they need to place us at the center of government and at the center of the NEC, of the ANC. Moving forward, after that, we will be able to be in a position to meet with these other structures, your ex-Azanla, ex-APLA, to find a way forward together as a united force. After having taken resolution, this resolution we will present to them as well, so that in case if they adopt, we move with one speed, with one voice, with one objective of making sure that we are placed together at the center of government, whilst now we will be also at the center of the NEC, of the ANC. Because the reality is, as we are busy with the strategic dialogues, our aim is to make sure that as the repository of the ANC information or archives and so forth, the bigger picture is to make sure that we save this organization as we've saved it twice in history. So I think we really need to make sure that we move with speed in making sure that we save the ANC, so that we find space at the center of the ANC. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Cyril. Now, just again to actually just tie up some of these issues before we actually move on to the next round of hands. Look, it's not easy, comrades. Let's just put it that way. But there is nobody else who can do this other than ourselves. In one of the past sessions, some of the issues that we're talking about, we covered them. We will make those documentations available to everyone. For instance, the whole issue about the relationship, between the ANC and MK and vice versa. Commissioner Mojaki did take us through that. I went through the propositions, presenting a raft of resolutions that the ExMK conference will probably look at. And some of those things that we actually have in there, they also deal with some of those issues. For instance, the issue of separating the political from the social within the new structure. The reality is that there are people who are actually, of course, this is understandable because we're political soldiers. Now, there are people who then actually want to use the social, that is the named part of the structure, for their political careers and all of those type of things at the expense of everybody else. Now, to an extent that currently, as we know, we don't only have a vacuum within ExMK, but I can tell you all the formations you're talking about are in the same position. And that's because they took the same terrible culture of ExMK, in their own positions in order to position themselves within Sanva. As a result, Sanva collapsed. As you know, and legislatively, as you know again, Sanva is our entry point into the state as a group of ex-fighters, so to speak. So what then that means is that as we're looking at our situation as XMK, we have to look at the connections, the interconnections, of course, with others as well, from a political point of view, with the ANC, correctly so. How do we actually get a seat in the table where the decisions are made leads, and we've made a case for a commissariat as far as that is concerned to be able to actually structure that process so that we're able to do so. But also make sure that when the political structure, elected structure of any new entity collapses, services do not collapse, because the most important thing at the end is the weak, at the bottom of the food chain. Now, those are the ones who need more protection. Now, the changes on the Act, as far as the DMV, its location, well, these are the issues. Because the issue here is, for instance, the argument is DMV is actually badly positioned where it is. It should be out of the defense because this is no brainer. The reality is that DMV, firstly, is a civilian entity, and defense is the military, so you mix them. One with a stronger culture is gonna actually take over the one with the smaller one, and the smaller one will always suffer. This is what we see, because they're actually going cross purpose. So separating it, that's one of the things that we're actually propagating for that, but also separating us as they call us non-statutory away from that as well, so that at least we are looked after in our own, form and content, with everything else. So those are some of the propositions that we actually are putting in place to make sure that at least we can have our own department, own ministry, or whatever, that will look after liberation war veterans, or whatever nice definition that Commissar Mojaki want to actually have, because we're different from others. We are a shrinking species, whereas the others is an increasing species. You look at the DMV database, at some point, as I pointed out in our previous presentation, we were less than 24% in that database, but ExMK alone was actually responsible for about 56% of all deaths. Now, that's very painful to actually understand. You see, and that tells you about the different needs, why we need to be separated and be treated accordingly, and that's one of the examples of the things that we actually have. So, what I'm trying to say is that the presentation we're having today is interlinked with everything else we've covered, and it's actually still linking up with everything that we're still going to cover as we pivot towards the conference of XMK, and of course, hopefully it must be soon. We have to demand that at least this year we have to deal with the policy issues, and as a very minimum, we deserve that. And of course, the other aspect is that there is an anniversary, 60th anniversary. But what use is an anniversary when you're talking about people who are sick and dying and hungry and homeless and effectively in pain and crying? So we have to actually also get, our finger on that process too, to see how best can it actually help us, because why should we actually be cutting a cake for a 60th birthday when we're going to go back hungry at home later on? Those are issues that we actually need to make sure that we actually address, and nobody else will do those except us. Now, the next hand, I think, was Castro. Are you back or not back?
I'm back, my chief.
Okay.
Comrade Malik, just before Comrade Castro gets in, I was about to say, could those who have forgotten to lower down their hands do so, unless you intend maybe having a second bite immediately. But if not, someone might have just forgotten to lower the hand. Okay. And then I've also been battling to get back to our speaker, Comrade Moss. It looks like there's a problem of connectivity there. And whilst I'm still doing that, then Comrade Malik, we would continue with Comrade Castro now, followed by Comrade Omri, and looks like followed by Comrade Nomsa, in that order.
Yes, no, this one.
Comrade Castro, Comrade Omri, and Comrade Nomsa, yeah, they can come in. Let me just mute myself and then go back to Moss, yeah.
Okay. Castro, the floor
Thanks,
is yours.
Comrade Malik. My concern is on the basis of why do we find ourselves here? What is really where did it go wrong? Looking at the legislation that is there, the Military Veterans Act, there were supposed to be structures that were looking after the affairs of the military veteran. For instance, in terms of the Act, there was supposed to be an association that covers all the military veterans, which was supposed to be established by the DG of the department. There was supposed to be a council, an advisory council board. There was also supposed to be an appeal board. Actually, most of the sections of the Military Veterans Act talk to these structures, but they are non-existent. Or if they are existing, we don't know where they are. And then we landed in this situation that we are in now, where there is a PTT and the LSWV being involved in whatever they got involved into. But it means all of these are as a result of the failures of DMV to execute their mandate as per the legislation that gives them the powers to address the affairs of military. So it is actually a huge concern that why is DMV failing? Is it failing because of its location, that it is because it is within the defense environment? Perhaps it should be moved to the presidency, where it will be able to deal with all the issues that affect formally, what I would call formally disadvantaged persons, like we have women, those who are with disabilities, and the youth in the presidency. Shouldn't the military veterans also be placed there, as you were saying, Malik, that locating it within defense makes it to be ineffective, as the focus mostly would be with regard to to defense force issue. So the concern I'm trying to raise here is that we should look at what the legislation says. Why has it failed? Why has DMV failed to implement it? And what should be done? What proposal can we come up with in terms of addressing those aspects of the legislation that have not been implemented, especially the issue of an association that covers all the military veterans as prescribed in Section 7 of the Act. Thank you.
Okay, no, thanks for that. Yeah, just to quickly assist you before Mhlongo and then Sally actually go through. When I mentioned SANVA, it is that association that is there. So it does exist right now in name, and that's because they there was supposed to be a conference many years ago, but that couldn't happen, and therefore that structure is actually dead. And that didn't happen because MK had its own problems. And those are the issues that I was talking about, where the challenges within MK, a weaker MK is a weaker community of liberation war veterans and of course of military veterans as a whole. So that's one issue. But those are there, and I mean, of course, the same as the advisory council. People like Lucky Maginga was actually chairing both, of those, Comrade Lucky Maginga chairing both of those, and the appeals board, where Commissioner Sali, as well, and Mabusum Simon and others were actually there. So those, in my experience, the only one that was more effective to greater extent, or to a certain extent, was the appeals board. Though Moss would have been much better if he was here, because he was on the other side, where their awards were effectively ignored, at the great cost to military veterans. And then also, lastly, in one of the questions as to why some of these things happen. Now, of course, Moss has actually reflected some of these issues, but for us, focusing on the solution, we proposed to the president that we just need a technical team being sent. It must be sent to the DMV. Now, in the absence of any legislation to place a department in administration, but we needed to have people to go there and run the department and fix it. But when that was not part of what the PTT were looking for, then we said it makes no sense for us to be involved in that, because it's going to be a spectacular failure, as everybody here has actually witnessed it, because they were completely chasing their tails as far as I can. So we just couldn't waste time with that. So but Mhlongo, go ahead. Your hand is up. I just needed to help Comrade Castro with some of those issues. Mhlongo.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Comrade. I'm sorry that I have to say this. I know it's not nice. Sometimes one must always bring some good news, but I think at the moment, our biggest problem has not been the laws, has been the will of our leaders to implement the minimum laws that are there. Of course, the laws are not perfect. They're not perfect, but if there was a will just to implement those that are there at the moment, we would be far better off than we are at the moment. So I'm trying to say that let's be aware that we can have the best of laws, and we'll still have spectacular failures and so on, as long as there's no will at the leadership level to implement these laws. I'm sorry to say that the ANC has been captured, and so it has been MKNVA was part of these problems. I don't want to stretch many things. I've been working on these problems of MK, I think, since 2007. I've watched all these things, and I've seen all this upside down. But I'm saying that whatever we discuss, let us find the solutions under the conditions. But our solutions must not be naive based on that we will have a law and it will be implemented. Because the laws that are there at the moment are not implemented. That's what I want to say. The laws that are there at the moment are not implemented. This is why comrades still have to struggle to get payments for their school fees for their children and all that. The laws are there, but they're not implemented. So whatever we are planning, whatever we are discussing as a solution, as way forward, please be aware that you can have the best of laws, and if they are not implemented, they will remain on paper. So let's go around and find out what can we do to make sure that these laws are implemented. What can we do? So that is where we must, I think, make our serious inquiry. So thank you very much, comrades. Bye-bye.
No, thanks, Mhlongo. Just a quick one there, just to remind you, Mhlongo, so that at least we make sure that you don't feel we're not hearing you. Remember the first presentation we had here on the 29th of September was yours on whether one member, one vote can save the ANC. And effectively, then one of the the resolutions then was that of course it can, subject to some of the things that also fixing this and this and this and that. Now, as Comrade 60 did say, part of this process, and this is something that you also know very well, that part of this process is for us to then submit all of these propositions and ideas, and actually see how best to implement them within the ANC. So cleaning up the ANC, it's something that is in our forehead, but then it can't be the only thing we can actually also do, because that will also take time. We still need to find other things else to do, that have got to do with paying up the school fees and all of those type of problems. So you are 100% correct, in your assessment. We just need to also see it in the broader matrix of everything else that we are doing. But thank you very much for your wonderful contribution as always. Madlamini, you can go ahead. I think the 10 is
Thank
yours.
you very much. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Yes, I also want to quickly say, Comrade Mhlongo, I do believe that it's not either or. It's both of what we are saying, fixing the minimum that is in the current act, but also ensuring that the act actually serves us justly. Because as it stands right now, even if things were to run smooth at the DMV, we will be shortchanged. So both of these processes need to happen. While we're busy trying to fix the act, what is currently the issue needs to be fixed ASAP. So my point is that when we are fixing the act, we need to remember, and we need to actually send a message to whoever, whether the politicians or the public, the civil society, academia, whoever that will want to differ with us in our approach of saying, as liberation war veterans, we need to be positively discriminated in favor of.
Yes.
From the preamble of the Act, it needs to be clear that to begin with, the international community through the UN declared the apartheid system as a crime against humanity. And therefore, our Act will seek to address the injustices of the past system of apartheid and to honor those who sacrificed and suffered for justice and freedom in the land of their birth. So that has to be key in our approach, and it has to be in the preamble, so that whatever that we're changing in terms of the definition of who now a liberation war veteran is, has already been clarified to say this is the intent of the Act. And further to that, I do believe that now when it comes to the definition itself of the of military veteran or whatever, for us as liberation war veteran, we will define ourselves the way we're defining ourselves. But key, as far as I'm concerned, is to say liberation war veterans that are serving in the South African National Defence Force should retain their status of liberation war veteran. and that they should be eligible to accessing benefits due to being liberation war veteran. Because what is happening currently, we have comrades who are passing on Basa Seguma ranks wabo, the lowest corporal, whatever lowest rank you can think about. Because of the fact that they are in the South African National Defence Force, they don't have access to anything. Abantwana babo sebayazibonela ukuthi baphuma kanjani. It can never be correct. It can never be correct that we're thinking about us only and we forget about our comrades who are in the defense, because most of them are the ones who were ranked incorrectly. So when we look at the issue, Mina, I am pushing for the fact that we should not only think about ourselves only. Another thing is that a statutory force, or what they will refer as a military veteran, will be those people, number one, who served in the SADF, number two, who served in the TBVC states, and number three, those who joined after 1994, who joined the National Defence Force. And they become military veteran only at the retirement age. It can never continue to be correct that people who joined when we came back from exile, others joined about 2000, and they spent just 3 years in the Defence Force, and then they become military veterans. We queue with them at the DMV. We need to be jealous of our legacy. We need to protect it. It can never be correct. I do not agree. So I am pushing, therefore, that anybody who joined the Defence Force after 1994, they have to wait until their year of retirement. If they decide to resign before they reach the age of 60, they will wait until the age of 60 before they can access the benefits. I pause. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's a quick question there on the last one, Commissioner Salim. Now, would it make a difference as to when are they called military veterans? I'm talking about those who join, like your Mandela soldiers, those who join after 94. Would it make a difference as to when are they called military veterans if we are separated, both in budget, in structure? That is, we're actually separated away from military veterans. We are a standalone liberation war veterans with our own budget and our own issues. I'm not sure if my question is clear.
It is very clear, Commissar. So what I'm saying, indeed, you are correct with your question, and that is exactly what I'm saying. Even from the database, there has to be a database of liberation war veterans with the SDUs and MK apply and their forces that they were using inside the country. All of us in one database. And there has to be a database that has military veterans, statutory, the ones that belong to a state.
Yeah.
The one that fought against freedom, but for the state of South Africa, and the ones that fought for these smallanyana states of the Bantustans, and the ones that are in the state of the post-apartheid in a democratic country. They all have to belong in one database. So that clear, separation from us. You know why I'm pushing for this one? It is because the white soldiers or military veterans are pushing for the conscriptors or the conscripts to be part of military veterans. Imagine thousands and thousands of those people now they are supposed to be in the database of military veterans. Actually, the budget will not suffice. Now, when we are separated, we have our own database, they have their own. If they want to include the conscripts in their thing, it's their problem.
Exactly.
So we have our own issues. We clear the issue of the SDUs and so on, because indeed we need to fight the fact that SDUs were an extension of MK.
Yes.
And so on and so on. And then we have our own database. This is how Commissar, I can answer you. I don't know if I am.
No, that is perfect. You actually answered it very well. Okay, no, but thank you very much, Commissar. The next hand, can you help me? You can go ahead. I can't see for some reason whose hand is that. But
The next hand, Comrade Chair, will be Comrade Mujaki or Comrade Preston. Just before he comes in, just an update. Comrade Moss is back now, but he's back on my phone. It means we have to revert to the original arrangement, where I bring it closer for him to listen, and then he talks through the sound I've provided. You can go ahead, Comrade Preston, then we'll handle that later.
Thank you, Chair. Let me start where Comrade Sadi was secretary ended. I've always been advocating for this, that the DMV is structured, the quantification and qualification of military veterans should literally imply those that were in the liberation struggle armed from between 1962 and 1992. I am talking about those who were involved in MK, in Port Odem, and later in Azanla. Those are the people who should be actually regarded as armed military veterans, as captured within the DMV clause of legislation, so that there should be a quantification of how then do we address the basic needs of those people who during that particular period could not amass their own pensions, could not develop academically, could not participate in the economic streams in South Africa between that particular period. How do we, as the military veterans, then incorporate the SDUs as they were? That is another story for another day. That you look at it from a different angle at the platform. Because, like I've been saying in one of the papers that I've been writing about, that you should remember that our struggle had 4 pillars. One of the pillars was armed struggle, which is us, the military veterans that we are referring to. And the second one was mass mobilization, which is where the SDUs are located, or should be located in practical terms, because we were mobilizing them in order to advance the struggle through whatever means at their disposal, as it was during at our disposal. That quantification should actually be used, because in all honest and fairness, if we were to talk about the members of the SDUs as they are today, we will not be very, very honest and say they are only about 10 or 5 or 3,000 as they are captured in the DMV, because they operated differently and they were commanded differently, and they had to be treated at that particular level with that particular expertise that they had during that particular period. That is the point that I wanted to talk about. Now, going back to what Comrade Omri was saying, which is what I wanted to talk about in Comrade 6. Starting with Comrade Omri. Comrade Omri is 100% correct. You know, South Africa in the whole world, mark my weight, in the whole world, is the only country that has the best constitution, the best legislations, that if they were implemented, South Africa would be better than America and Britain combined this time. Honestly speaking, if you look at the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa from chapter 1 to the last chapter, and then you say if these things could be implemented, would be different from whatever other nation that you can think of. It is not the issue of whether military veterans are in the DMP, which is in the military or whatever, in defense force or whatever. You can take it anywhere. It will still be a failure. It will not be able to address the issue that you want to address. Why? Because of several reasons that only speak of one thing: human nature, human attitude. Because those that we mandate to implement the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa are not equivalent to the task. They become self-aggrandized, they become selfish, they become greedy, and they forget about the people that put them there and the purpose and the missions that that they are supposed to be pushing that particular thing. That is what should be dealt with. You know, I was saying earlier on to Comrade Malik and others that, you know, all the ministers of defense who were there and the deputy minister responsible for our issues are all our comrades. They are from our trenches. Some were by our commissars, like Comrade Tabamba was by commissar. Now, when they go there and are given these responsibilities, they forget about us. So the issue is not the law. The issue is not the regulations. The issue is not the legislation that's there. But the issue is the type of people that we put in front in order to lead and govern us. Comrade City is 100% correct, and I agree. We should not be beggars in our own homes, in our own house. Because the African National Congress is us, and we are the African National Congress. We should not, when we want our issues to be addressed as the advanced detachment, that we should go and knock on somebody's door. No, we have to make sure that we are there in leadership. We are there to articulate and represent the aspirations and sentiments of our own people down there, which is not the case now. You go and knock on the door of Datara Maposa. Datara Maposa does not even know much about MK. You go and talk to Uma Buza. Uma Buza does not know much about MK. They were not there with us in the trenches. They did not know how the fly destroyed our people. They did not know the effect and the impact of malaria in our lives. They do not know those things. And you expect them to perform miracles. I agree 100% with Comrade 60. We need to be in charge. We need to be in control. Fortunately, in 2 weeks' time, I'll be dealing with the commissariat, and this is the emphasis that will actually be there. I hope everybody is on board on that particular day. I agree with Comrade Omri. Our constitution and our principle, our legislations that are there are very, very strong and powerful. All we need is who can we send to go and implement. Comrades, that is the principle that we should be looking at. We have failed ourselves. We have failed our people. We have failed our communities. We have failed our fellow combatants. Why? How? By doing nothing when things got wrong. By not claiming our strategic positions when we were supposed to have done so. But now it is not too late. We are here, we are conscious, we are aware. Let us do something. Let us see and occupy the space. If we don't do that, somebody else will do that, and not for us, but for him or her own self-aggrandizement. I thank you.
Comrade Malik, what I would propose now, how we should proceed, you could summarize, for the sake of Comrade Moss, what the issues were, just briefly, and then let's allow him to continue the presentation just in case a battery runs out or airtime runs out. So while he's still on the line, let him do that, and then when we come back, we would look at the hands in sequence that were available at that stage. It was Comrade Sali, Comrade Six, Comrade Mujaki in that sequence. But please, let's get Comrade Moss to move in. Over to you, Comrade Chair.
I do think that it is actually still fine for Moss to actually just pick up where he left. And that is because, and that is because effectively we're just reflecting on some of his presentation so far, in the main centered around the act. That's that. So he can still continue where he left off.
Moss, are you there?
Yeah, can I proceed?
Yeah, proceed.
Okay. Good evening once again, comrades. Am I audible?
Yes.
I really apologize. I don't know. Now I can't see technology. Something is just amiss here. Anyway, just belabor on the point. I had gone through about the first 5 slides, and I was at a point where I was concluding on the objectives of what we seek to achieve with this discussion. And in the last objective, I was trying to say that we are trying to develop a common and shared vision around the issue of ensuring that we have a common approach in resolving what seems to have been a challenge over the last 27 years. And I was alluding to the fact that the PTT is a manifestation of an attempt, learning from the last 27 years, to make a much more decisive intervention led by the president, which in the past was not there. I think I'll take it up from there. And I was then saying that the paper seeks to convey the point that given the fact that it's now led through the presidency, it opens a new opportunity to actually deal with some of the issues that, as I rejoined, are pertinent. The genesis of the PTT, I'll summarize it by saying that it started on the 10th of November with a march to the Union Building, where the Liberation Struggle War veterans got an audience with the presidency. And then subsequently, the president assigned a deputy president to actually deal with the issue. Now, I've distributed annex charts, which I'm not going to delve with. People can read at their own leisure. But they seek to summarize what the issues were in terms of the memorandum that was submitted on the 10th of November to the president. There were 12 all in all. 12 of them, the key ones, which we called the main issues, were a gratuity of 4.2 million rand. The once-off payment that they felt if given individually will solve the socio-economic challenges facing military veterans. And given the state of the economy and others, it became a point of contention where apparently there was that the state can't afford it, won't go that route, and the Liberation Struggle War veteran representatives stuck their car. So that started the tension point. What I would call what they felt was an meaningful income to refresh the 27 years of what they felt was not being taken care of. And the lost year in exile, in their opinion. The second area in the document, in the grievances, was the issue of removal of a macro policy of government called the means test. You would know, just in summary, that any benefit of government, be it in the Department of Education, housing, is means tested. You have to satisfy a particular criteria that looks at your income stream, etc., your standing in society, to be able to qualify for it. And the strong feeling within the group representing the Liberation Struggle War veteran was there must be a special dispensation that exonerates the military veterans from being means tested. I remember because I was part of those discussions at that time, representing DMD and by extension government, where certain questions were raised that included even quoting certain individuals who have benefited a lot from the democracy, including who have become millionaires. I was saying that when we give a house of 188,000, we give Tokyo the same house, like Sally. It became a bone of contention. Where do you prioritize? If you say it's equitable treatment or contribution, with the limited resources, is it the right way to go? Or with the limited resources, we should actually prioritize those who are in the most dire situation. That became a second bone of contention in which there was agreement to disagree. The third area of contention in the 12 group of demand was the issue of the approach to a connecting of the CLV to be effective in the decision to deliver anything. And there were different perspectives around that issue. But those were less attention than the other two. But in the overall, there was a basis for strong consensus. And that is why from the 10th of November, when the memorandum was submitted and a technical task team was established to advise ministers who are relevant to actually respond to this, they found each other in a month's time. Many a discussion took place at the Vegas Park Hotel. We later shifted to St. George's. I also distributed documents to be complete. And there was much more better finding each other with time to a point where the culmination on the 10th of December when the president got a report from the deputy president and the DG of DMV was appointed to lead the technical team of execution and was leading the liberation struggle of the team. Signed a document called the consensus document. I've distributed it, but then in the manner in which it was crafted in the memorandum of demand, it was clear that certain areas can be grouped together, which will then make efficiency and effectiveness of management of public grievances or these demands are dealt with, which then gave birth to what then came to be called the work stream. The work streams were then given in terms of reference. There was a work stream on socio-economic issues, including housing, health, and then there was a work stream dealing with legislative and constitutional amendments that must be responsive across government to the needs of military veterans. There was a work stream dealing with what I came when I rejoined, what's called the database management. There was a work stream dealing with the issue of income stream, the gratuity stroke pension, which was then disaggregated later, because it was clear that there was not going to be a meeting of mind with regard to the demand of 4.2 million. For very cogent reasons that have been put, whether justifiably or not, it's another debate for another time, which we continue at conflict, or further refinement and debate. But on the need for a sustainable pension than just giving SRD, so-called social relief of distress, and COVID-19 payment, it was clear those are unsustainable. It was clear those are hopelessly inadequate. So the move that there was consensus on around income stream as an intervention was the pension. Now, the pension regime that was being mooted, which a lot of work was done. Fortunately, I was heading that process with National Treasury, Social Development, and GPA, the agencies of National Treasury. I'm advised when I consulted before I distributed that it's almost with 90% readiness. And I think it was number crunching now to see sustainability, because the pension by its nature should be paid until you die. And when you die, you should find a dispensation for your king. So if it has short, medium to long-term intervention issues, and I'm told that significant work has been done. Yesterday, I spoke to guys from National Treasury who I was working with gave comfort. And I've illustrated how it looks like, the methodology we used, the actuarial studies we did that were more or less based on international benchmarks, where we were able then to almost find each other. And they said to us yesterday that it will then have to go through the process of cabinet approval and you are home in dry on that one. So significant progress has been made in relation to that one, which gave comfort in the sense that it could make a dent in the family. The estimated indicative income or let me say 10 veterans was estimated around 78,000 per month, which basically based on the studies conducted in other actuarial study groups was proven to be affordable and sustainable. They said there's not much difference from what I left when I left the department. So it's comforting that at least there's some breakthrough that made to give a certainty in income of military veterans. The other streams there were about fast-tracking housing delivery, just within the context of what is called socio-economic intervention, housing, health, education. And of course, SRD was not removed until the pension kicks in. You would know, Congress, that amidst COVID-19, there was a strong argument that was put to the Council of Defense, but it cannot be and ought not to be that military veterans are given 350 like all citizens of our country, having sacrificed and having lost, had no income during the struggle. And we want to create that budget that it was supposed to be up to 1,200 a month. And it should be linked to COVID-19 intervention by 850 from TND and 350 through SARS. So the regime that was proposed and was being implemented was the COVID-19 regime that had been started by SARS and then 850 from Pfizer. At the time when one left in April, if my memory serves me well, a significant number of approximately 900 to 1,000 and something have been paid. And I understand premium continued. As to why it has stopped, honestly, I can't answer now. But the reality is that I'm told that it stopped. There's a challenge there. But even there was a bit of progress made. All I'm saying, it was not all to make do. The area that became quite mute was the area of housing. Apparently, literally nothing, all of them has stopped. I'm yet to know, and I'll be keeping the group informed as to what's being done to reduce capacity, because I can see the ability of contribution. That some progress has been made. Projects were running already on housing in Palm Beach. We were on course to try and build 670 houses. In the West Rand, 300 projects were up and running. So the question of getting beneficiaries. But I'm told everything stopped. As to why, how, I'm yet to be informed. I don't want to venture into speculative politics. But apparently there's been affected there. Education, also there. Apparently there's a bit of a challenge. Not a big actually, a big one. Because kids have been suspended from school and then. And literally now, my phone has become, just to illustrate, a call center. People who knew that I was working in that field, I get not less than 60 calls a day. Say, Commissar, when is my child going to pay for it? I'm not ready. Second, apparently, I do the fair comment, but I don't have the effective ability to intervene in a decisive manner, like if I was part of the system. So there is a challenge now that has become a serious matter of non-payment, threat of children being fired from school, and them. And I think if there's anything that ought to be prioritized by the TTT, is to actually intervene in that apparent inertia or lack of movement with education support. So in the socio-economic space, there's some progress, but also setback. In the space of legislative amendment, we advised that the issue of amending the Act is now on course. Parliamentarians are being briefed regularly by the Deputy Minister and the Minister, and that work group is actually making some progress. Maybe what we may want to do as adding value to the process would be, what are the areas that we seek to really give major attention to? And I want to submit through this paper that what's being discussed around database borders mainly towards the definition of a military veteran. All else, if that one is cracked properly, falls into place. Because that act seeks to put the so-called statutory forces, or let me say, former oppressive army, in the same part as former liberators of this country. That is where the main confusion is. In the database we have now, not only is CMDO arguing for conscripts to be part of the database, but also within the liberation movement side, there's a strong argument as well, a push factor that SDUs ought to be treated as military veterans. So on both sides, there's a lot of pressure around who then gets into the database and by extension gets access to benefits, the 11 benefits as stipulated in the Act, and therefore, what are the exclusionary clauses that have to be there? In inclusionary clauses with checks and balances is a new policy question. So it's unresolved matter perhaps we may have to ponder and apply our minds to add value to the process of legislative reform. I do indicate, I will not belabor the point, that in addition to the Military Veterans Act 18 of 2011, which is under amendment, there's also other impacting legislation. So there has to be a much more holistic and integrated approach toward what is appropriate government legislation that can be able to actually address the challenges faced in military veterans. There's Health Act, the Human Settlement Act, the Heritage Act, and many pieces of legislation that have a direct and indirect impact on military veterans. So a much more broader and holistic approach to legislative reform is required if the PCT is to change the paradigm of past intervention into much more impactful and meaningful change in the regime that addresses socio-economic problems of military veterans. So the paper argues that a government-wide enterprise, a holistic integrated enterprise is needed if we're to make fundamental change to the lives of military veterans. And I think I put it in bold in the slide that a government-wide approach. Now, by government-wide, we don't only mean legislation at national level. We have three spheres of government, we have state-owned enterprises, who, when there's a holistic state intervention or state-centric intervention, have to look at the regulatory regime, policy regime, and programs of all these entities of government. If at all are going to make an easy, quick, and much more higher impact intervention. That's what the paper is arguing on legislative reform. But there is a work stream on that area as well. The last part one, on the issue of the heritage, there were two contentious issues. The one was, do we repatriate people from Angola back home, from Angola back home, from Angola back home, to actually make them reconnect with the ancestor? What do you see in countries that are raising the issue of Kadeno emasculating the history of relationship? A case in point we want to illustrate with is the one in Mandola. I work for the Freedom Partner. We visited and met with the Department of Corruption and Tourism, just to illustrate how sensitive the matter is. And the Mozambicans were very strong that what we fought together, we died together. Why are you taking them away from our history? I remember when we actually repatriated to Ukawam Popular, who was in special ops, and I went to the Eastern Cape delegation, which was not the easiest thing that they were here.
Mozambique will try to cry in tears and say, but Tabang was one of our own. Now you can't dig him out and take him away from some of the graves that of people that he lived with in Mozambique. So it's much more than with the eye in terms of the sensitivity of the culture, heritage, and background of these countries. So there is the bone of contention there, which therefore raises the question. Is exhumation and repatriation the best option, or can we find other ways in which we preserve the history of revolutionary relations with peers in the past? Some of which could be we build monuments where people can visit rather than go and take their own. And then emasculate the history that people are proud of in those countries, or remind their people about where we come from. And the second area around the issue of repatriation is the fact that which I want to put on the table, because now it's really on the table. In March the 19th this year, Cabinet established what then called first there was a resolution that repatriation must continue. Second, on the picture of that, Cabinet has taken a decision which we may want to assist through these processes, including policy discourse on how we manage this issue. Cabinet has also established what is called the repatriation and restitution of the remains and objects. One of which entails a program to repatriate people from all the areas where we were attacked. Angola, Maseru, Gaborone, and then. Also, that one is raising complex questions. On the 3rd of December, there's going to be the first committee meeting of that on restitution and repatriation. And I think our input to reinforce how government thinks and approaches, including the PTT, from this body of thought that's gathered here, could help in that direction. I'm just flagging the fact that it's work in progress, it's complex, it requires application. Having said that, I think people can read at leisure in terms of what each work stream in terms of reference are, and we can then inform ourselves to progress and challenges faced. And with your encouragement, I'll move forward. We are proposing in this paper that is the way forward. We have to look at the current situation and how we can actually resolve it. As we speak now, people are on track. As we speak now, we're just from a catastrophic local government election. Within that environment, what are the implications for mental veterans issues to be addressed? How in Joburg, which is under DA, are we going to enforce the fact that they actually come to the party of breaking the precedents from the area of Joburg? Similarly with Swami, similarly with Sekurle. So the complex political scenario that has emerged with local government elections has a direct, profound impact on what we envision as interventions on mental veterans in a highly volatile and changing political environment. And those who should apply our mind and not be emotive about it, but be strong and robust in measuring them. Because if we do fail, we will be failing thousands of killers who went into exile or were killed. Many come from the metro. These metro social going unfortunately in the wrong hand. Charlatans and opportunities are defining the history of this veteran. What are the implications? Which is the best way that we can be able to challenge this new emerging scenario? So on the basis of that, I'm saying there is a lot of process with the current changes in the political and socio-economic space. We then are making certain proposals you can read at leisure. Suffice to say that isn't it our time that we think much broader and we say, who does it benefit and what is it worth to actually keep people under arrest in the middle of negotiations on matters of mental veterans? And the people is arguing that Can you think of them being pardoned and then the moment time is resumed to negotiate and conclude what perhaps was already on course? It's an area for pondering and debate. The institutional reform I can't overemphasize. We know what's going on in DMV. Some of us are guilty of charge, we were part of it. Though we had limited authority to do certain things. But the reality is that that department is beginning to be found wanting in responding to some of these areas, and therefore creating an unfortunate tension that's mounting about whether these matters will ever be resolved or not. So there's still a lot of work to be done there. And lastly, then, besides proposal, we should know that there's some progress being made. I want to indulge the group to read the provincial road shows that took place in Northwest, in Limpopo, in Gauteng, in the Eastern Cape, which were led by the deputy ministers with the deputy president. I think they give a sense of where things were before the St. George's unfortunate happening. I'm not very privy to, I was really out of the space there, but I'm sure we can get together. It's a public document. In conclusion, the paper suggests that we have work to be done, and the momentum that was started through the GTT ought not to die. In fact, it has to be reinforced by, amongst others, strengthening intergovernmental relations framework for intervention on military veterans, such that national, provincial, and local work in concert in resolving these matters. I thank you.
All right, that was a very, very pertinent presentation in terms of the issues that afflict us all and concern us all. Now, looking also at the time and the hands that were up, before I get back to you, Comrade Malik, the hands that I had were those of Comrade Sali, 60, Muzaki.
Your call has been placed on hold. Please wait.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Your call has been placed on hold.
Let me just...
Please wait.
Let me just... well...
It's technology.
Yeah, actually, Moss was talking through my sound system, yes or no. Anyway, I was saying that the hands that we had were those of Comrade Nomsa, 60, Muzaki, and Ish. And then we will...
No, my hand is not up.
Oh, it's not no more up.
Okay. It was an old one.
Oh, all right, okay. Okay, let me go there again. Nomsa 60-ish, yeah. All right. We'll continue in that sequence. I think Comrade Moss is back now, yeah. Just get in, you can come in, Comrade Malik, whilst I'm attending to Comrade Moss.
Okay, no, I think let's just take the hands, because we have been here for a little bit longer. So yeah. let's just get on with the hands, so that we can move towards closure at some point soon.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I think, did you say Comrade Sali's hand was the first one? I think
yes.
Yeah, she can go ahead.
60 and ish, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Doc. Thank you, Commissar Moss, for the good feedback again. I'm sorry because my system kept kicking me out. I think I lost some of it, so you'll forgive me if you have covered these things. But I just want a bit of clarity. I think it's commendable, nevertheless, the incidences after the St. George's or at the St. George's thing, but I think it's commendable already the achievement that the LSWV have made. But I just want to check Now, there are work streams that have been established, and I hear you giving feedback on those. My first clarity is on, I remember in 2016, Comrade Jombisto and Comrade Makaya was part of that as well. There were work streams under the, was it PIT? I can't remember.
Yes, turnaround team, ministerial turnaround team, something like that.
MTT, yeah. Under the MTT, there were work streams, brilliant stuff came out. And as far as I know, there is not much that was achieved in terms of implementation. So with the work streams now, with the work with the PTT, are there specific timelines that are put to say by this time this must be implemented? Not on paper, not spoken about, but indeed done, implemented. We can see there are people who can vouch to say they have benefited out of that. My number one. My number two, I just want to check the issue of, now, as there are those resolutions or decisions that are taken there, and the act and the regulations of the DMV have not changed, what is going to be more viable or applicable? Is it the the PTT decisions, or the regulations and the act are going to make those things not possible to implement? What is the correlation between the two? I'm asking because I think, I don't know whether you spoke about it, but the fact of the matter, as Comrade Omri and Comrade Mujaki really insist that there is nothing, no, we can continue with the act and so on, and the other side was saying it's not either or, but we need to do both. Because right now, indeed, the act is saying the housing benefit that Liberation War veteran I'm going to talk about is to the tune of 188,000 rands. What house can you buy at 188,000 rands, honestly? And they say you must be earning per annum an amount of, is it 300 and plus, Komisamos? I mean, who earns before deductions per month 10,000 rands, honestly? So, it's those things that we cannot say the act is okay as it is, it just needs implementation. My other one is the issue of the dependents. I don't know whether you covered that with the work streams that are happening. The act only gives the dependents access to the benefits of education, counseling, and I think compensation. But we know when it comes to healthcare, it is a real problem. You do make an example of COVID has hit the whole family. Only the father, because he's a military veteran, can access healthcare. The rest of the family can see how they get out of the situation. It can never be right. So that, including the issues of housing even, because here is the military veteran having passed on, the children are left without. So these are the things that we also need to introduce in the act. And the fact that there has to be a protection, a buffer, to say that house of a military veteran that you got from the DMV should not be subject to the laws of the country as far as the community of property is concerned and stuff. Okay, maybe, yeah. But Komisa, I just wanted to check those things. Sorry if I have dragged the issue. Thank you.
Okay. Most, do you want to respond to that, or we'll take another one? Clarence, how do you want us to do it? Do you want to pile up the questions or just answer them as they come?
I would have suggested, because we have several questions which on their own are complex, each one. But I answer the first page.
Okay.
And in that is that maybe for purposes of efficiency of time, we should not repeat what I would have answered with. I mean, these are very pertinent questions. The correlation between the turnaround strategies and the taxing or ministerial team that was established under Machombozi by Minister Nazir, which was on to see did we borrow, certain lessons borrowed from that experience? If not, what are the implications? If they were, to what extent? That's what it's always loaded. The continuum of policy trajectory. The second one is in relation to the change of legislation vis-a-vis the PTT policy proposals, which one takes precedence? And if there's any that takes precedence, or can they run concurrent? What are the implications? So the administrative complex, can I take them one by one? And then, of course, I'm not far from suggesting I'll give conclusive answers, but I lay basis for food for thought. Because I don't think we can exhaust them today, but at least we can start putting them on the radar screen as a collective rather than answer to question session of this format. Can I proceed, Malik and Makara?
Yeah, can you proceed and then
just keep it directly, like short answers, if you can.
Okay, cool. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Okay. On the first one, Sally, in fact, all of them are very important questions because they always matter of consistency of policy intervention. You would recall that the issue of the turnaround strategy, which included work streams, that dealt with some of the issues that the PTT is dealing with, was a ministerial intervention. The PTT is a presidential intervention. That qualitatively changes the whole posture of the two interventions in terms of the authority that resides in those two interventions. PTT is the highest level, highest office, which therefore would carry more weight and authority in pushing the entire government rather than pushing a department to actually intervene on matters that require urgent intervention like military veterans. That's the first distinction. And therefore it offers a new opportunity which ought to be dissected and utilized appropriately for the benefit of our community. The second aspect is that ministerial intervention through the turnaround strategy. A report was given to Parliament. When we presented in Parliament at that time, the acting DG was Ozinski, and we were a team of both the ministry and Umachombozi and ourselves as senior management of the department. In principle, Parliament endorsed the proposals that we made around the workstream recommendations on education, database, and so forth and so forth. But beyond that, there was no tangible, visible follow-up, which then created a gap of transition from those proposals to the PTT. Maybe that's what, to some extent, inadvertently led to some skepticism about the PTT when it started. Because people were saying, but there have been many attempts to intervene, nothing is happening. So there was a bit of a discharge, I must acknowledge, that we had in relation to bringing a proper correlation between the two processes. However, there is significant movement that's taking place now, as I indicated. Not adequate, but it's significant to note. In terms of areas where I said there was some progress, but there is some progress. And some of which include the pension regime, some of which at the time included housing, there was better movement, and so forth, as I want to keep myself. So it is apparent that as we begin to make proposals, we cannot throw away the water with the baby by only looking at the issue of the TTT outside of other previous proposals. So my view and understanding now says that we are proposing that we also go on progressive recommendation that will be emanated on the turnaround strategy of the minister, so that it further inform how a sustainable resolution is done by the TTT. So the way I said, it will have a lot of value, because there was a lot of research and work done by trustees at the time or the work streams at the time. So they ought not to be contradictory or mutually exclusive, but they could complement. I leave it at that for now. Just high level principle response. Change of legislation vis-a-vis PTT decisions. I should have indicated, I'm sorry that I didn't emphasize. It's one of those areas that were sharply engaged. The status of the resolution, their timing, enforceability of implementation, because it was clear and still is clear that military veterans are tired of empty promises. They want action, tangible results with quick turnaround time. And that is why if you read the document which I distributed, on each demand, the time frame, it will say on pension, these are the players and departments involved, and that's why it was structured that way in terms of work streams. By this time, there should have been policy. By this time, there should be implementation. So these demands, as now articulated in the consensus document, are much more tighter than what we used to do in the past, where it's open-ended on sort of resolutions or agreement. So I think there is also an improvement there insofar as the PTT approach towards a much more accountable regime to monitor and evaluate progress. I will leave it at that with the hope that some timelines have been lost now, as I indicated. We may want to say, as we go to the content of ExMK, review the timelines and tighten them such that they respond to the exact time of delivering what, by when, by who. 5 Ws as an age, what, by when, by who, with what means, etc. I leave it at that with the indulgence. There is the issue of the house of 188,000 vis-a-vis the income of a military veteran. I would say that there is concurrence there. Everybody was saying that the current regime, which mainly was designed primarily through the human settlement, rather than GMV, is quite disadvantageous in terms of the quality of the house towards ensuring that in restoration of dignity we give a decent house. I think there was concurrence in both sides. There was no contradiction between the state approach and the military veteran. Firstly, the flaws were actually outlined that policy was designed in 2014 in terms of the regulations on human settlement. Now this is 2020, 6 years. No review per se that has been done yet. Started working with human settlement to review that regime. And so it's not considering inflation, it's not considering the socio-economic environment around which military, and it's not scientific, let me just be crude. And even human settlement, we engage in them to say, and they were comparing. That's why I'm saying on that one there was unanimity. At the time it is 1 year. So we had a task team that was established which on the side of TMV one was leading, on the other side which was led by Utilichi and may so rest in peace. And some of the areas we're looking at one, then we have to revisit. Human settlement I recall was very advanced in terms of, you will know from just to share. A house of 188 is based on the fact that it has certain specifications. An RDP house is a 43 square meter in terms of South Africa. The 42 square meter. When being a 42 square meter, there's no carport. Being a 42 square meter, it cost at that time when it was originated in 2014, 110,000. That's a typical RDP house. Now, to try and give some semblance of dignity, the practitioners in TMV at the time said that we can top up so that there is some semblance of dignity, and then add certain things like extra bedroom and carport and so forth, which then translated to TMV in its budget will allocate 78,000 per house. It's a split responsibility. And then human settlement will pay 110, which in total was 188,000. And that's about 6 years ago, 7 this year. But then it suggests that this is not only responsive from economic perspective and financial perspective, it must be totally overhauled with new approach towards the payment regime or the amount, as well as the criteria for qualification, because the issue of a person earning not more than 120,000 rand has created a big chunk of people excluded inadvertently. We were beginning to quantify with research, and we arrived to what we call with human settlement, the missing link, missing link. Those who earn 120,000 and they are disqualified because it's 10,000 a month, up to 188,000. The group there was increasing exponentially in numbers. Therefore, suggesting that we're getting more and more people excluded in the regime of support by government. And on the other hand as well, society was not also, they were not bankable. The parents were saying you can't bear a risk to be given houses and bonds because they would be repossessed very hard. So they were caught up between hard place and the rock, where the private sector rejects them and doesn't even consider them. And we're not pushing the financial sector hard enough. On the other hand, government says you don't qualify. It then explains why then we have to engage and say, no, let's review the entire regime on how. And that process was ongoing. The unfortunate part is that I'm told that those things have to be facilitated. And that's all, I'm not sure it answers well, suffice to say that there was no form of contention from both parties, that it had to be reviewed and moved upward. Income stream to be increased or to be decreased in terms of making sure that more people qualify rather than be excluded. So I think there's a space there for improvement, and there will be contention between the two. People are engaging all the groups. Coming to the point of dependence, I have spot on, you've answered yourself. In the 11 benefits stipulated in Section 5 of the Military Veteran Act, they are very exclusive narrative beneficiaries. Education support, skills development support, and training, as well as empowerment in terms of business. The other $8. Now, what then that suggests is that inadvertently that legislation is discriminatory. And I think the health part that you actually illustrated is spot on. And we all agreed. if I'm in an accident with my children now, a helicopter from everywhere will come and pick me up and leave my wife and children to die. That's all it means, basically. And what type of health regime is that? So also even in that one, there was unanimity. We even went to an extent before to share, to write what we call a ministerial, what we call it a ministerial intervention. Try to use the ministerial handbook whilst you're changing legislation and regulation. So the minister can be given power to be able to intervene because it's a political decision. And guess what? There's no way it can be done because you set the wrong precedent. So we then got 32 square one. So it is an area that requires reflection and real robust discussion because the social consequences of it are too vast to contemplate. I limited that for now. It's work in progress that requires real strong advocacy, I must say. And there's a critical mass that sees that logic, which we can harness toward finding a lasting resolution. I think that I'll end up there with the relationship study. Thanks.
I don't think what Comrade Moss has said needs any further paraphrasing.
Not at all.
Just a reminder to those who might have come in maybe later than the very start. We had said that we're not limiting participants to questions only. You can have a contribution integrated with a question so that things move faster, so that you have something more comprehensive, so to say. And I think now, in terms of the hands, I think we'll have Comrade Ish followed by Comrade Omri. Are they still with us? Is Comrade Ish still there?
He's muted.
Okay, we could go to Comrade Omri for now. Maybe if he's online.
Yes. Thank you, Commissioner Makaya. Just to say that on the contribution by Comrade Sali, I think those points that you put are important for us. I would suggest, if it's possible, I know that most of our MK lawyers are sometimes reluctant to be involved, but it would be good if our MK lawyers, draft those things in a legal way, check the act, the various acts, and make amendment on the various act on this issue, the item that Comrade Sali has raised. And in a case where we need to change the law, like the last one that Comrade Moss was saying is discriminatory and so on. If possible, we actually should get lawyers on pro bono and take it to the Constitutional Court, rather than to wait for our politicians who are unwilling sometimes to help us. So we take the matter to the Constitutional Court if need be, so that the Constitutional Court direct Parliament to change the law so that we are treated equally. We're treated equally. So I think what I'm saying is it's important that we should look at other options except to rely on our former comrades to change the laws. Some of our former comrades are reluctant, and we know they are reluctant. So if we're going to wait for the next general elections before they do anything, it might be too late for some of us. So my suggestion is, if we have comrades, lawyers, if possible, let them help, with the points Comrade Sani was talking about, craft them into legal ways, put them into as amendments to the act and so on, and we put it forward and see whether we can change this law, rather than to wait for comrades so-and-so who might not be worried about us anymore. So that's what I wanted to say. So if possible, where possible, let's draft and get a pro bono lawyer to help us, Thank you, comrade. Bye-bye.
I'm not sure if Comrade Ish is back.
Yes, I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yes, get in, Comrade Ish.
Yeah. Okay, now, just to say thanks to Commissioner Moss for his paper. It was like worth listening despite the interruption. And I think he answered my question, which was related to the turnaround work stream. You know, he explained to me what, because I was part of that one. And then I would agree with what Commissioner Sally has said about the changes. And everybody seems to agree on that one. Lastly, just a comment to say that it's the only country where we have military veterans who are 26-year-old, you know, and that needs to be changed. I was approached by somebody who said that she was on the database. That's why I'm using the age 26. She came in as an MSD into the Defense Force and only served 2 years, you know, and then she became a reserve force member. Okay, but she wanted to know how to get to the DMD office because she's now a military veteran. And it was hard to show a direction, but I did, you know. Thank you very much.
Right. I think it's, I'm trying to look at the time, we're 8:45, I think. We shouldn't go beyond 9 p.m. We are now going to have Comrade 60 followed by Comrade Castro. Yeah, let's go in that order for now. Comrade 60, are you there? Or maybe it's a question of technology.
Yes, okay. I'm there.
Yes. Yeah, go on to see.
Yeah, firstly, the issue of the lawyer that Comrade Ogri is talking about. Can I engage someone for, I will at least link him up with Comrade Malik in that regard, so that he can be briefed as to what needs to happen. I think he'll be prepared to take us on for all.
No, sure.
Secondly, on the issue of placing ourselves at the center, I want to emphasize that at the center of the ANC, NEC, and at the center of government. It's not an issue of one trying to do what MKVA was doing, to make sure that you go into the hierarchy position or the highest echelon of the position of Military Veterans Association in order to find yourself as a deputy minister. But I think if we can make research, President Lorenzo in Angola is a product of intervention by military veterans. That's why he's there. President Nyusi is a product of a general who was a military veteran, both military veteran and Frelimo veteran. That's why he is there. So we should create an enabling environment for ourselves. When we are faced with a situation like the situation that is prevailing now, where our metros are gone, where the ANC is going down the drain, the ANC must be in a position to look for us, not us running after the ANC, because we are ANC, as Comrade Mujaki said. We must create that enabling environment when we get into that conference, when we also develop this policy document. And also on the issue of the turnaround strategy, I think, colleagues, let's not make let's not take anything to chance. Let's collect each and every document that we can come across and compare notes. Much as the PTT and the LSWV has achieved a lot, the issue of being spoken into or spoken for, it should be the thing of the past. I can see the way forward, proposed way forward of the PTT. We need to speak together. We need to think along, not be thought for by certain people. We need to be there when things are happening. We should be part of it, fully so. Thank you.
Comrade Castro?
Thanks, Commissar. Actually, my is just a question of clarity.
Sorry,
Can you hear me?
Comrade 60, could you please remember to lower your hand? Yes, Comrade Castro, go ahead. Yes.
Okay, yes. Mine is a follow-up to what Comrade 60 was saying. Because the PTT is being referred to, but we don't exactly know who is in that PTT, who are the various heads of the various work streams. If you want to make a contribution in terms of a party-specific work stream, is that information easily available? And if it is, how can one get hold of such information? Because I know there's a lot of comrades who can make a contribution in terms of taking the PTT forward, but unfortunately are not being engaged because they don't know exactly who is who in the PTT. Is that information easily available? Thank you.
Can I continue?
Yes, go ahead.
Let me start with the last one. The last one, I think it was a document I got from the person who served under the work stream of leading on the bench called Mashfield. In that, he's giving progress reports they were giving in the umbrella provincial. And each work stream in terms of it is a change in the manner in which we structured was work streams at that time. There's a champion and a leader, convener. And each one then becomes the entry point to each work stream. So it should not just be available, it's there. We should look at the document. If you run the it, I'm moving to this now. But I think the secretary can help. Let's dispose of that. The second one is in relation to the point of sticking together. That's an interesting one. That requires us to really think through of how we relate so-called formal structures with informal structures that emerge out of a crisis management situation, and begin to relate to how we then manage those things. I'm raising that broad question because there was no conference where there was a resolution saying now from today there's what is called liberation struggle war veteran. None. I tried to look at mandatory documents when I was still trying to understand this and none. Within MK, within APA, there's nothing like that. So it's called created a spontaneous reaction, wanting to react to derogatory things like non-statutory force. Two, to create a niche that's going to challenge some of the challenges that are inherent in the way the system is being interpreted. And then it therefore reduces the whole perhaps justified attempt to find lasting resolution into informal processes. There have been groups meeting. There's one more debate in court with the indulgence Malik. Even within this group, there is a group that still calls itself Liberation War Veterans, who meet apparently regularly and discuss a range of things, one of which is to support the strategic dialogue, or actually, we informed that even this strategic dialogue program is a product of what structure. And to learn how issues that we are yet to be clarified. So there is a lot of overlay between what's formal process endorsed with visibility and transparency, what is informal and whatever. So, as to how we assert and speak in one voice, it becomes very murky, very cumbersome, very difficult to navigate, because it's then complicated by the whole process of the MK National Council. Who are they? Where do they fit in the whole regime? There was MKNDA. Who are they? Where they fit in the equation? And worse still, there's a resolution of the National Working Committee trying to implement the NEC decision incorporating the resolution to dissolve the two National Council. Where? How? There is a team now established under General Sima. What's the status and local state of that in relation to all this plethora of institutional arrangements? So it's quite a mute point to arrange. That perhaps from a government point of view, governance and disciplined engagement and creating credibility and integrity of rules of engagement ought to be interrogated. We don't know who's leading, who is leading, but everyone is leading. So I want to agree with you, and that's what to me makes me to sleepless night. Too many voices, no chorus. But all of them are genuine. We are all genuinely wanting solutions. Which one is genuinely more genuine than the other? So in the process, then inadvertently we confuse who? When 3 or 14 elephants fight the crowds. Now, okay, they don't know what is. The Eastern Cape was calling itself, what are the Eastern Cape recently? They used to call themselves Liberation Struggle War Veterans. They say they are moving an S. And I asked somebody like, when is the movement S, what is essential change? That's when the S, the math confused and otherwise. Second, I'm not actually now out of 4 seconds or what. I call that transformation or spontaneous direction. So with many questions and answers. I don't think I'll satisfy you, but you're raising a fundamental point. As long as our house is not in order, we talk on cross-purposes or with short term. I think the very noble intentions to achieve won't be achieved. It's an area of government that requires to be tightly discussed and managed. The point that we raised around the issue of
time, my chief. We've got time issues.
They are there, they are available. And they are all in terms of my recollection of their security classification. They are just restricted documents. There's nothing that's supposed to be just secret level. So that's why it cannot be a clear view of public discourse. We'll attempt to have some people who can go to get them, and I'm sure it shouldn't be difficult. So I'll commit on that one to ask with them. I'm sure we can assist each other. Officer, the deputy minister, our intentions are noble. We're not considered as trying to overthrow anyone, and there's nothing to overthrow anyway. So they ought not be too difficult to realize. So getting the turnaround to strategic document and then ought to be an hour thing when it's there. We crafted it. Why should we under the cabinet is going to help us? On the last thing on my side is the issue of an enabling environment. Again, 60. I think that's an important point. it raises the issue I want to raise and flag for consideration. What's the status of the resolutions that are taken by the PTT? What are those mechanisms to make them enforceable rather than negotiable? What makes a minister to be pushed to say thou shalt or thou shalt not? Whose authority does it lie? Which then takes us to the question of what is the role of the president in giving oversight and monitoring and evaluation of implementation if the PTT is supposed to be a presidential instrument? Those are critical decision points that ought to be cleared. Where one says, if I was now to transform being a presenter to be an MK, we cannot have a resolution that are not possible. That there's no instrument of forcing multipliers to actually implement. It cannot be, ought not to be strong. And that's why for 27 years we're where we are. So that will be my take on the question. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Comrade Moss, for so eloquently articulating the problem with the advantage of your background within the Department of Military Veterans. Indeed, one cannot waste time itemizing issues one by one when it comes to your medical care for military veterans, their housing issues, employment, jobs, economy, all of those issues. How do we compare to other countries that have dealt with military veterans? But one can just recall that, we've come a long way. I remember a 2-day session called Ministerial in Arbeit, was Beachwood Hotel with Minister Nozema Pisa Ngakula. After that, indeed, as Comrade Sali had well noted, something called a turnaround strategy initiative, TSI, was appointed, and then we had another meeting at Royal Elephant Hotel to refine the issues. Then Majombo said, no, these issues are refined, are going to be handed over to the minister are going to take them to parliament. That's been a few years ago, man. Until today, nothing has ever happened. And therefore, it shows the agents that now we need to move to a situation where something should happen. You can't blame Comrade Omri when he says, no, when he suggests that now we need lawyers. It's because,
I suspect.
Good evening, Doctor.
Hi, how are you? I see
Good
that,
evening.
yeah, maybe the others are still coming.
Yes, I can see Ishi's trying to come in as well.
Yeah. Okay.
I wonder if I need to call. I'll come back. I need to call and ask people to come to the meeting. Maybe
Okay.
they've forgotten.
That's fine.
But
Yeah, I'll also come back now.
Are you there, Comrade Malik, or have you gone to pour yourself a glass of something?
No, I'm struggling with time.
Okay, yes. Comrade Malik. Do your
Yeah.
closing remarks, no problem.
Okay, no, that's fine. Thanks. Look, comrades, thank you very much. Commissioner Moss, thanks for your presentation. Obviously, it's a very complex and a very broad issue, as we have actually noticed. None of these issues are actually easy at all, and the biggest, trouble we actually all have is the reality that there is a vacuum. There is no structure. There is no MK structure or veteran structure that can actually carry and represent us when it comes to government engagement and all of that. And for those who might not actually be aware, is that I did say this before. the PTT is government employees. There is no, in my understanding at least, there is no one who is non-governmental in that structure. And secondly, all the associations had an input in that. So the idea that we can actually contribute, like Comrade Castro, as individuals, outside government, I'm not sure if it's that easy because I deal with some of them on a regular basis. There is limited pathway in terms of that, but most importantly, some of the issues that you raised, Commissioner Sala raised, they are not actually being addressed at all. I mean, like it's practically dead. When, as you know, when Didi was away, there was nothing happening, at all, and there is absolutely no alignment with the John Bestow program as far as I see on what I see, in terms of happening there. But we made a lot of progress in terms of those issues here today. So thank you very much. Now, next week, just to actually remind ourselves, next week we're continuing same time and hopefully shorter time. It's actually too long to be here for about 3 hours. Next week, Comrade Castro will be taking us on, I think it is heritage, Comrade Castro, that you actually be dealing with, heritage issues. Now, again, we will realize that in the past, we actually had a very strong cultural component in MK, that actually motivated culture, inside the country and elsewhere. And that's not only part of our heritage, but heritage has actually been buried under a whole lot of things, and this is actually quite important. So, Comrade Castro will actually be dealing with that aspect. You can correct me, the issues of heritage and culture. That is next week, and then after that, he will then be followed by Comrade Mujaki, who will actually talk us through the issue of commissariat. And then of course, Comrade Castro will close us, on the 15th, somewhere there, with the last one more on the political aspect to say, do we want to demand a league, or there is something you can do with, another way of securing power within the ANC, and that's in line with some of the questions that have been raised. But on my side, I just want to thank you. Please stay safe and have a wonderful evening. Unfortunately, myself and Castro have got another engagement somewhere else, trying to juggle a whole lot of balls. But thank you very much, comrades. Amanda. That's it. I'm sounding like a cat. You're sounding like a real young lion. Sure. Thank you.
Are we still moving to that session?
Yeah, I actually just told them I'm coming back, so I have to go back there.
Okay, because I also didn't go there. I'm going there now.
Sure.